as you can see here, we are at the Intellect office with a few cute emojis with us. So it is pretty exciting. And yeah, welcome to Mental Health Festival 2024 for those who have actually joined us in today's session. We are at our last session right before lunch, and we're going to make this a really interesting one because as you can see, we are actually live at the Intellect office here, and it's going to be with two very fun people. One is a coach and one is a therapist, and they will be bringing us through the differences between coaching versus therapy and how you can work with them to reach your goals that you would like to. So without further ado, let's welcome Ivan and Linda with us here today. Yay!
Hello,
Hello! Welcome!
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for joining us here. Okay, why don't let's start with Linda. Maybe you can introduce yourself to our team here and our audience as well.
Definitely. Hi, everybody. My name is Linda. I'm a clinical psychologist here at Intellect. Actually, we're not just at the Intellect office, we're even in one of the therapy rooms here with a nice sofa. So do come by, take a look once you're here. In my practice, I tend to have a couple of different approaches, including CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. But I won't say too much yet. We'll definitely be talking more about that in a second.
Yeah, we're not letting all the details yet, but let's now hear from Ivan, our coach here at Intellect. Ivan, over to you.
Hi, my name is Ivan. I'm actually a certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. So I've been coaching for the past 8 years now. I've been coaching corporates, and interestingly, I also do train managers in the art and science of coaching as well. For them to use in their day-to-day work at their workplace, all sorts of topics.
Yeah, pretty interesting. I think we all have worked with each other before. And we go a while back actually before this because Ivan and Linda have worked with each other too. But before that, before we go into the first impressions of each other, we actually want to know the first impressions they have of the professions instead. So maybe we'll start with Linda and ask you a bit more about what is your impression about coaching. And then we'll go to Ivan and ask about what his impression about therapy itself. Linda, what is yours?
Thank you so much. Before I had the privilege of working with Ivan as well as a couple of other amazing coaches, I did have a bit of a stereotyped idea of coaching. I imagined coaches to be these super energetic people who have the best to-do list and who are just on top of their exercise every single day. And if you're not, they're going to hunt you down and motivate you. That was kind of my stereotyped idea. Now, luckily, thanks to working with Ivan, I've learned a lot more about coaching, but that was kind of the first impression.
Interesting. Okay, let's see if it's the same impression for Ivan when it comes to therapy, maybe.
Impression before I met Linda, before I had a therapist telling me what therapy is, my impression was a little bit opposite of what Linda had. The therapist is going to make me lie down. That was my first impression.
Oh.
She's going to have a nice couch. She's going to make me lie down. She's going to make me close my eyes. And then before I know it, I'm sharing all my deepest secrets with her. And then at the end of it, she'll be so nice and I'll be feeling like everything will be okay. And that was my impression of what therapists actually do.
Okay, pretty interesting. I think we have very polar opposite impressions here when it comes to coaching and therapy, which is interesting to hear, right? I'm pretty sure those of you who are also joining, you have your own impressions about therapy or coaching itself, which is completely fine. That's why we're here today, to really learn more about both as well. So that really actually brings me to my next part, whereby I want to ask those who actually are joining us here today and really understand about coaching versus therapy. So have you actually tried coaching and or therapy? So it's actually a poll question, so I'm really interested to see what are your responses like. And it's completely fine if you have not tried, but if you have, then do poll for it. So we can give it a while. Okay, we do see quite a few responses so far. That's pretty fast.
Linda, what do you think?
Whoa.
More coaching or more therapy?
Interesting. It would be very hard to tell. I don't know what kind of audience we're talking to. Obviously, I'm hoping everybody's going to say both.
Okay.
Not enough answers yet. I think not. We're really like half the people answering.
Yeah, actually it's pretty interesting. Some of you have not tried either before, and there's a tie between coaching and therapy.
Okay.
We were not expecting
Come on,
that.
people, keep voting.
Come on, let's hear more from you.
Oh, one more for therapy now.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty competitive, as you can see. And so, pretty interestingly, a significant of you have also tried both coaching and therapy. That's pretty interesting as well. Okay, let's keep it coming. And yeah, I think there's a significant number of you have not tried coaching or therapy, and I'm glad you're here today with us because that's exactly what we'll be diving more into as well. And I guess that also brings to my next point in terms of how are we going to dive into coaching and therapy. So Ivan, over to you to actually take us through what exactly is coaching about.
Yeah, okay, coaching and therapy, we have a lot of similarities, but for today's session, we really do want to focus on just the differences, so they can really tell between the two different services, right? So I'll say coaching, in a nutshell, it is a very reflective and creative process where the coach just partners with the client, do a lot of visualization, walking through in your mind space, and really to think about new solutions that will help you to reach your goals, help you to picture yourself in a different alternate universe, and just try the things before you buy. It's almost like a fitting room, right? Nature of topics, usually we are talking about some changes you are hoping to make within yourself. This could be behavioral, it could be habits, positive habits you hope to take up, or it could be certain things that it's very tangible things that you want to develop in a new skill, self-confidence, etc. As far as orientation goes, coaching is pretty much more future oriented. Now, that's not to say that we can't look into the past, but each time we look into the past, it is for the sole purpose of designing something better for the future. So we're using the past to go into the future. You know what I mean? Right? It's mainly suitable for topics that are more towards goal setting. You're setting really strong goals for yourself. You want to stretch your own limits. You want to see how far you can go. And on your own, maybe you don't have the courage to do so, and you want to work with a coach who will just guide you through. We often say it helps you to maximize your potential as well. Yeah. What does that mean? It means different things to different individuals. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty interesting
Is
to hear that.
Clear enough for now?
Yes, it is, of course. Yeah, and I think maybe we can go to the next slide where we can actually hear a bit more about the myths behind coaching. I know those who have not tried coaching, you probably have heard quite a bit of myths about coaching, like, it's only for career issues. I can't use it in my personal life. We are exactly here to actually identify and address those myths. So Ivan, again, back to you in terms of addressing the myths.
Yeah, this is a common one. This is a common myth
Right.
that coaching is only for career issues. So of course, this is correct as well. Coaching can be used for career issues, workplace issues, but it's not only for career issues. Career coaching is one form of coaching. Coaching can be used for a whole plethora of issues such as relationship, habits, as I mentioned earlier, goals, stretching yourself in different domains such as family, friends, social, different things. Yeah. So this is a good myth that you actually brought up, Debbie.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we have our next
a
myth.
few other myths as well, right?
Yeah.
Just take it one at a time. Coaching is a quick fix.
Is it?
Oh, yes and no. It's a very tricky question. Coaching can bring impact really quickly.
Okay.
But if you're saying it's a quick fix as in one session and done, then it's definitely not. You start to see cumulative benefits as you go through multiple sessions. We're looking at 4, 6, 10 sessions, of course, depending on the complexity of the questions, of the topic as well. Then you may need multiple sessions for you to really see the changes starting to take place in your self-behavior.
Okay, so something like a sports coach, right? It's not like one time you go for it, then you can immediately actually see the benefits in yourself. Right, okay, yes. Okay, maybe we can go to our next myth then.
Okay, the next one. Anyone can be a coach. Again, yes and no. Anyone can train to be a coach.
Okay.
You see what I mean? So if anyone wants to be a coach and you think that this is a profession that pursue, yes, you can become a coach. But not anyone can sit down and become a coach magically and overnight coach. Coaches do go through a very rigorous set of training. There are assessments to be done. There are contact hours, practical hours. Typically, a coach only receives their certification with at least about 12 months of training, at least. And then they go through different levels of certification as well. So no, you cannot just sit down in a coffee shop and say, okay, now I'm a coach. It doesn't work like that. Yeah.
Okay. That's quite interesting. I didn't know the minimum was actually 12 months.
There or thereabouts.
Okay.
And I think this will be the last one. Coaching is the same as mentoring, very close to what we were saying earlier. It is different in the sense that mentoring comes from a position of expertise. So if I started a business, I can mentor you in how to start a business. But for coaching, it's a bit different. We are not coaching from a point of expertise. And my main expertise is in understanding why human beings do not change, even though they want to change. So it's a bit different as mentoring.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I think we have with that actually identified quite a bit in terms of the myths around coaching. And thank you so much, Ivan, for also sharing it and addressing a lot of your myths that you might have. So maybe now you have a better clarity in terms of what coaching is. And with that, maybe let's hear from Linda when it comes to therapy itself and what is it exactly about as well.
Definitely, yeah. So Ivan already shared, of course, there's a lot of overlap. And of course, it also depends on what kind of a therapist you're working with, right? There's going to be lots of different approaches. But if I had to summarize into one overall overview, the idea is definitely that we're looking at healing, let's say, whether that's healing from a certain situation that we're in, from past situations that we've been in, that we want to grow as well. And of course, when it comes to therapy, a lot of times, especially with clinical psychologists, diagnosis can play a role. Diagnosis isn't important for everybody and for all situations, but in some situations, it can be really, really helpful. So in those moments, we'll also include some diagnosis. Similar to coaching, of course, it's past and future focused. I guess we would focus a bit more on the past and really looking more at the origin of where, let's say, certain beliefs come from, or where certain patterns, where we might have picked those up. That can be recent past, that can be all the way to childhood, the classic therapy myth, not myth, I guess, the stereotype, I want to say. Exactly, yeah. But yeah, we really cover lots of different areas, whether that's more on emotions, understanding your emotions, managing your responses to emotions, whether that's on responding differently to certain situations, or really just understanding yourself and your own identity better. All of those areas are things we can cover in therapy.
Wow, it sounds very in-depth actually in terms of therapy itself and what it can really cover and offer for a person, which is really interesting to see how both coaching and therapy, they are very useful and beneficial to us in just so many different aspects. And I think ultimately just takes two different approaches, right? But both are useful for one, and it depends which one would you like to go for as well. Thank you both so much for sharing about it.
Hold on, I still want to do my myths, please.
Of course, let's go for therapy myths this time around.
Don't skip me.
Yes.
I'll do a quick one. So the one myth that we have here, therapy is only for people with serious mental health issues. That's a very classic one. Of course, therapy is very helpful if you have a serious mental health issue, but therapy can be helpful so much sooner as well. And actually, the sooner you start, the faster you tend to recover, the less effort you need. So yeah, that's a quick one. Do we have time for all the myths? Should we skip some?
We do have time for it.
Okay. Therapy is just venting about your problems. This is a classic one. I hear this a lot. And a lot of times, especially people who have a negative view on therapy, they think I'm just paying somebody to vent. I could do that with my friend, right? And there's a big difference between talking to your friend and talking to a trained therapist. So I guess the main difference is that yes, we give you that space to vent, but we do also follow up with action steps. We help you question certain thoughts. We help you make behavioral changes as well, cognitive changes as well. So definitely much more than just venting.
Definitely, and I think it's more objective perspective as well, right? Compared to your friend who already knows a lot about you as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's our next myth, which is therapy tells you what to do.
Definitely. So in a way, yes, we do guide our clients and we do take our expertise to kind of show them, okay, these are areas we want to touch on. These are exercises we want to do. These are techniques we want to do. But that being said, our clients are the experts on themselves. So we always check in with them. We always make sure that this is helpful for them personally, that let's say if we give you a little exercise to try and you come back and you say, I hated it, I never ever want to do this again, that's okay. We'll adjust and we'll see what works best for you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think it's always about seeing the differences and how you can work around it. And I think that's our last myth for today.
Oh, therapy is a lifelong commitment. It can be if you want it to be, but it definitely doesn't have to. So it really depends on what topics we're working on. There are lots of topics. Let's say if we look at the classic ones, if we're looking at some milder anxiety symptoms, some depressive symptoms, all of that can often be solved within 6, 8 sessions, something like that, depending on which approach you use. But of course, if you want, you can always come for lifelong sessions. There's always more we can learn about ourselves, and especially as new life stages come up, as we're in new situations, there's always more we could learn in therapy as well.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to do it for lifelong, you can as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You're more than welcome to.
Okay. And I guess that actually wraps up in terms of the myths and for both therapy and for both coaching. And I hope we've covered the base for everyone in terms of letting you know a little bit more about therapy and coaching today. But of course, we want to always put it into play. And that's where we will have a role play next. And this is actually going to be a few scenarios that I'm going to be bringing up and how we can actually use coaching versus therapy to actually manage the situation that we're experiencing. Okay, I think we're really excited. Let's go for our first scenario. Indeed, I all agree. Okay, so we'll start off with our first scenario for today, which is actually about end of year review, which I think a lot of us in the audience have actually experienced this. So maybe let me share with you the scenario first. I have my end of year review coming up, but feel really underprepared and stressed thinking about it. I'm not too sure what my boss might say because I feel like I've underperformed and did not meet everyone's expectations. I want to make sure that I do well during my review and get a good outcome. Okay, so this is the scenario and this is the context that we are putting in place. And with that, maybe I'll go to Ivan for a coaching session. And how would you manage me and my emotions? And then I'll go over to Linda for a therapy session for the same scenario. So Ivan, how would you actually, manage me when I'm experiencing something of this sort?
Okay, first of all, I wouldn't be trying to manage you today, so you don't have to worry about that, right? I'm just here to support you. I think one of the first things for topics such as this, right, we want to quickly look at what is really within your control.
Okay.
Because it's an end of year review, there are many other parties involved, there's your bosses, your peers, etc. So what is really within your control? Once we've identified that, we know what we can work with and what is not within the coaching sphere. And then of course, we're going to look at, for example, you said you're not meeting everyone else's expectations. Is that really true? Or is that just a belief that you're holding? So we want to explore a little bit about other people's expectations and whether you are putting those expectations on yourself or will they actually return to you and say that you are in trouble, right? And maybe we might move in a little bit into say how would you like to use the end of year review? How do you want to feel going into these sessions? How do you want to make the best use of these sessions? And usually it's not very helpful if you're going in all stressed up and all that. So we have to think of an emotion that you want to adopt, a narrative that you want to adopt before even going to the session so that you make the best use of the session. Yeah. But of course, it also depends on how many sessions you have with the coach prior to a session like that. But if it's just a just-in-time session, you are having your end of year review tomorrow, I guess that's pretty much how much we can cover.
Interesting. Okay, thank you for helping me out. I think it's a bit more towards like how I can work towards my emotions in the future itself and prepare for it. Maybe let's go to Linda. And how would you help me when I'm actually experiencing this scenario?
It's definitely a really good example. I think it's definitely something that in just a few months we'll all be in that position. When it comes to therapy sessions, I guess, of course, we would dive a bit deeper into it, but if I give a general idea, we would definitely look at the emotional responses that are coming up for you, or the patterns that we're seeing. So when it comes to end of year review, and you mentioned like feeling like you didn't reach the expectations, is that coming from a point of perfectionism? Is that coming from a point of fear of failure? Maybe past performance reviews have a big impact on how you see the current one and might see it in a bit of a distorted light. Or we're going to dive deeper into that emotional response first. Then we're definitely also going to be looking at some self-limiting beliefs that you might be holding. A lot of times we have these really core beliefs that tend to hold us back. Classic ones are, I'm not good enough, or my manager will never think I'm good, or it doesn't matter what, all of these beliefs that can really hold us back. And even though we think it's just a thought I have, it really has a big impact on us and our behavior and how we especially show up in these performance reviews. But then more acutely, of course, similar to what Ivan was saying, we would do some stress management so that leading up to the conversation, and in the conversation you can be grounded, you can be mindful, and you can respond rather than reacting when any kind of emotions come up.
Okay, interesting. So it's a lot more about healing myself and also finding the core reasons and root causes behind it.
It can be, yeah.
You hear a lot of similarities coming up.
Yeah. I do see the similarities, but I do see there's also a slight difference as well in terms of coaching itself. It's a bit more future oriented, whereby they're like saying, okay, how can you work towards the goal that you want to achieve as well when it comes to the end of your review? Versus for therapy, it's a little bit more different because they also look at the underlying causes and what are your emotions and behavioral reactions as well before they actually go into this whole healing process and growth as well, which is pretty interesting. But I think I want to put this into test again for another scenario that I might be experiencing. Yes, our second scenario and role play for today. So it's actually about coping with social anxiety. It really hits a personal spot, but I think it's really something that we also do deal with. So this is one of our next scenario. So it's actually, I've always been a shy person from young. It got worse in secondary school when I got bullied. I've been feeling very afraid of being in large groups, which happens quite often now in work and even in my social life as well. I want to get better and I want to be able to enjoy social outings like most other people. So it is quite different from the first scenario, which is more about work. This is a bit more about the social anxiety and also interaction with people, right? Which is something that we all do on an everyday basis as well. So maybe let me go on with Ivan again, once again. If I were to go for a coaching session regarding this, so how would you be able to help me with that?
I think a coach first and foremost would invite you to really define what is being social. What does it mean to you? Because it might mean very different things to different individuals, right? So what does it mean to you? Are you trying to be a social butterfly? Are you just trying to be comfortable among friends? So what does it mean for you? What exactly are you trying to reach? Then we might invite you to think about some of how is this actually important to you? Are you doing it more for your own self-care, well-being, or is it an image thing, a status thing, a career thing? So it's making you and supporting you to define the goal before we even dive into it. And for a topic like this, it's quite interesting because it gives us the opportunity to go into a visualization activity. So this is when I would make you lie down. I'm just joking. We don't make you lie down. Perhaps close your eyes and bring you a little bit into the future and imagine yourself as a social person without all the fear of, because you're not really doing it, right? You're not really among friends.
Yeah.
So to imagine yourself as a very social person, what do you like about it? Where is the fear? How does it actually feel to be a social person? What are you seeing? Who's beside you? What are your friends telling you? What are you telling yourself? And then from that positive space, perhaps invite that Devi to say something to this Devi, to yourself. What would that person be telling you? It might sound something like, it's actually quite fun to be social. There's nothing to be afraid of. I'm just guessing over here. And then right at the end, it might challenge you by asking you to take small steps. What is one thing you're willing to try without forcing you to say, oh, go and meet 10% tomorrow. It's going to push too much, right? So we'll invite you to define your own limits. What do you want to try as a first step, as a second step? And then slowly, we can start to see any behavioral change. And of course, this will take multiple sessions to then think about, look at what you think and how you feel as you are in a social setting.
Interesting. So it's baby steps taken to what you want to achieve in an idealistic self.
If baby steps is what you're looking for. If you say, I want to be a social butterfly tomorrow, okay, let's try, right?
Okay.
It's entirely up to the client.
Okay. So if miracles can happen overnight, then yes, of course. So it depends on you, of course, depending on which step you want to take and where you want to reach. And maybe if I were to go for a therapy session, how would it be like for a similar scenario that we have?
Yeah, great question. So when it comes to any topic like this, we would definitely want to try some assessment at first. Assessment isn't necessarily the same as diagnosis. It's really just seeing where are you right now, what are you experiencing, getting a bit of an idea of how strong your symptoms are. So for social anxiety, that can be bodily symptoms, that can be like a racing heartbeat, for example, or it can be thoughts as well that come up. And we want to figure out where you are right now so that we can figure out what would be the best plan forward. But also, once we make some progress and we can really see, oh, okay, these are some symptoms that have become less or that you're not experiencing at all anymore. So assessment can be anything like, we call it clinical interview. It's not an interview, it's really more a conversation. It can be self-report assessments. There are lots of different ways that we can kind of assess where you are right now. And then as part of this baseline, we would want to go into psychoeducation as well. So even though you, in this example, you came in saying, I have social anxiety, I would want to make sure that we're both on the same page of what that means and how that impacts you. And it really a lot of times takes away the strength of the experience as well. So it could be really understanding that social anxiety is a conditioned response, that it's something that we can unlearn, that's not something you have to live with forever, to really understand all the symptoms that you experience, and how this is really, a lot of times, for example, a fear of judgment that then makes us avoid those social situations, and how we can really reverse that. We would want to build some emotional awareness. We want to practice like noticing our emotions, figuring out what emotions come up, figuring out whether we want to respond to them. And then I guess if we really get into it, the exciting part I personally find is we can always do exposure therapy as well. So that would mean a really, really gradual exposure to these situations that bring up symptoms. That doesn't mean, like Ivan said, that tomorrow we're going to meet 10 people. It can first start with like some visualizations. It can even mean that we together would go out and let's say go downstairs into a little bit of a public space. But the key is that we're desensitizing to these situations, as well as we're practicing that we can calm ourselves down and we can use the tools that we've used in session, so that after a couple of sessions, you'll be able to do that all by yourself until the point where these symptoms don't even come up anymore.
Okay, that's really interesting, because I think it's my first time hearing more of therapy approaches that's been taken. And it's very interesting to see there's so many different approaches that can be taken, and sometimes we do tend to use terms loosely sometimes. So it's good to actually have an assessment to really figure out what are we really feeling. Is it really social anxiety, and like different layers around it as well. Yeah, thank you so much both for sharing that. I think it's great to understand different approaches that can be used for both coaching and counseling and how it differs as well. So I think now we're going to have a small activities about self-coaching actually, and we're going to have the audience to get started. But of course, Ivan, do you want to bring us through how is it exactly like?
Yeah, okay, we have a series of questions that we prepared for you. So if you can just download whatever that our colleague Suya is going to share, this will help you to then edit it in an editable format, right? These are just some questions. I'll try to walk you through it. What the questions are really trying to drive at, and hopefully it brings you to somewhere. It's a small little step, right? Self-coaching has limited effectiveness, but it works to a certain extent. Okay, so I want to invite you all to do this activity together. Self-coaching. Think about a goal that you are trying to work towards. It could be a developmental goal, it could be a habit you're trying to pick up. If you are not sure what exactly you want to achieve, a very quick way to get one idea is to look back at your New Year's resolution. Your 2024 New Year's resolution. Or it could already be something you're looking forward to in 2025. So you're telling yourself, I'm going to do this in 2025. Okay? Write that down as number one, what I want to achieve as the goal.
Okay.
You might want to ask yourself, why don't you start now? Why are you parking this as 2025 goal? But okay, that's another conversation. Thereafter, question number two, how is the goal actually important to me personally? Okay, a lot of times we are thinking about how important the goal is, but we don't think about how is it important. So there's a slight difference over here. Okay, think about how is the goal actually important to you. You may want to think of what it symbolizes to you, what are the significance of it. You could go a bit deeper. For example, a person might say they want to take up public speaking, right? So how is the goal important to them? It's not really their day job to do public speaking, but maybe public speaking to them might mean self-confidence.
Okay, so it's like underlying.
Yeah, the underlying layers. Maybe for the longest time they've been telling themselves, I cannot do public speaking. And now they want to break that self-limitation. Okay, it could also be that one of their bosses previously told them you can't do public speaking, and now to do public speaking is simply to prove another person wrong. It could be that. Okay. Now number three, what is one change that I need to make to have a significant impact on my progress? Just think of one thing that you need to change. This may or may not be an actual step. Like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do this. No, not exactly a step. But what is a change that you might need to make? Could it be an emotional change? You feel differently about certain things. It could be a perspective change. Like from, I can't do this. This is very common. I can't do this yet. Okay, this is a very simple one change that you can make and identify one that would already have a significant impact on your progress. It could be as simple as setting an alarm clock. It could be as simple as no phones in bed if I want to sleep earlier. This kind of thing, just one change. All right. And number 4, similar to what I mentioned in number 3. What do I need to start telling myself? This is more on the perspective part. Because a lot of times what you tell yourself will end up shaping your behavior, which ends up shaping the effect and the impact as well. So what you need to start telling yourself is basically inviting you to start a new narrative. Okay, like some of my clients may say something like, from now I want to tell myself, good enough is good enough. For a start. For a start, rather than analysis paralysis and they don't even start, right? So good enough is good enough for a start. Yeah. And we come to the last 2 questions. When I do achieve my goal, how else would it benefit me beyond the obvious? For this question, we are trying to get the individual, whoever is doing this, yourself included, to think beyond the obvious, beyond the actual purpose of the goal itself. For example, a person might say, I want to be fitter, I want to run a marathon. Okay, what benefit do you really get apart from that little medal? Our colleagues yeah, you don't really get anything, right? But what else? How else would it benefit me? Maybe I take less MCs. Maybe I generally feel better as a person. Maybe my wife will start looking at me like a hot hunk. So basically, you're going to start thinking about things beyond the actual goal itself. Okay? And lastly, this is where it's honesty hour. What's really stopping you right now? Right? A lot of times we can think of excuses, or we can't think of. We give ourselves far too many excuses. And when someone else tells you that maybe that's just an excuse, you feel judged. But when you say to yourself that this is an excuse, you tend to take more control. Right? Yeah.
I never thought of it that way.
And think about what's really stopping you right now. So this is just 6 questions for you to get started. It's also a taster as to what a coaching session may look like with a coach. But of course, the coach will ask all these questions in a timely fashion, in a more caring fashion, and maybe you would even ask yourself, progressing towards your goal.
True, and all these questions are not usually asked within one session, right?
It could be within one session.
Okay, that's quite interesting as well. Okay, interesting. Let's see if you want to give a bit more time for the audience to also try this out. But in the meanwhile, we actually want to share with you a bit more about the coaching sessions here at Intellect, which I'm sure some of you might be familiar with, and you might even have seen Ivan or potentially see Ivan soon as well. So this is actually our one-on-one behavioral health coaching, which is available both video calls and unlimited text-based messaging with our certified professionals here. So you can actually get to choose. So you actually select your own coach, and this is based on a panel of international coaching coaches that we have, and it's all from the ICF Coaching Board, so International Coaching Federation Board, and we also have counselors and we also have psychologists, as you see, who actually will recommend you based on your preferences and needs that you have. And I know sometimes you're wondering, okay, what do I even use a coaching session for? I don't want to know what's my goals right now. So that's completely fine. That's exactly what the coaches are there for. So be it anything at all. Doesn't need to be only work related. It could be about your relationship, communicating, parenting even, or even self-confidence and navigating change. I think a coaching session is there for you through it all, and be it you're healthy or you're in a thriving range or you're actually feeling like really stressed, there's coaching sessions that are available for you throughout the spectrum that you're in. So that's just a teaser in terms of coaching itself. And I think I have been seeing quite a lot of questions coming up during this whole session. I think all of you are really excited.
Colleagues are asking us to answer questions already.
Yeah, so but this is just a nutshell. In case you missed out what exactly is coaching versus therapy, feel free to screenshot or take a picture. But this is what we have shared so far. And I think let's get right into the questions that we have. So let me look at some of the questions that we might have And feel free to also actually download this starter guide that you'll be seeing. It's a handout that's on the right icon side of your panel. You'll be able to see the differences between coaching and therapy that both Ivan and our lovely Linda have actually shared throughout this session so far. And if you have any questions, please feel free to now start asking them. Yes, we are actually seeing.
I see one there being highlighted.
Okay, I think one of the questions that's been asked is that, are all coaches trained in mental health? Are all coaches trained in mental health, Ivan?
I wouldn't say so, because you see, coaching stretches across a range of domains as well. So, for example, coaches that are functioning primarily in corporate world, like executive coaches, they usually try to drive things like performance, focus, numbers, and all that. So, it really depends on where they are playing it. What is their expertise, what is their passion as well. So to answer that question, probably not.
Okay. Yeah, because we have seen executive coaches, we have seen sports coaches, so there are many different types of coaches. And I think we have another question, which is how do we know if a coach is actually legitimate? Very interesting question for the coaches. Okay, one more question.
Are you legitimate?
You have to find out. How do you know whether a coach is legitimate? There are several international certificates out there for coaches. So there are just a few big ones. If you do a simple search, you will find that there's no more than 3 to 5 that are really legitimate. And then there are some that I saw some on the chat as well. They take a weekend online course and call themselves a coach. But it's we don't want to say that they are not coaches, because after all, different people want to brand themselves differently. But if you want to look for legitimacy, definitely do look out for their certifications as well, and look at some of the recommendations that they may have received on their LinkedIn. What are some experiences, coaching gigs that they've done prior to choosing them.
Okay, that's quite interesting.
You can validate on the website.
Right, you can, and you can actually ask them as well, like what are the areas that they're focusing on when it comes to coaching as well. Okay, I think we have answered a few questions about coaching, but maybe let's go to therapy side, right? And maybe are there any questions for therapy? If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in right now, and let me also take a sneaky peek and see if there are any questions for therapy itself. But Linda, maybe I'll ask you, how do you know, like how do we actually select a right therapist for what they're experiencing?
Great question. So some people have really specific ideas of what approach they prefer, and they might have had past experiences. But for most of us coming new to therapy, we don't really have that. So I guess the key is that you want to find somebody who has experience with either the topic that you want to work on or with the type of clientele that you are. So whether you're more youth, whether you're maybe a working adult, a lot of times gender plays a role as well. The most important thing, though, is how comfortable you are with that person. And so you can already kind of try to think about it a little bit. Are there certain people that you would be more comfortable with or not? But a lot of times it comes down to just trying it out. So a lot of people, I always suggest to all of my new clients, go ahead and try out sessions with multiple therapists. Really make sure that you have a good chemistry, that you feel comfortable with them. Because you don't want to keep having more sessions and noticing that you're holding back or you're not being completely truthful because you might not be super comfortable.
Very interesting point that you brought up in terms of it's okay to actually try multiple therapists.
It's encouraged even.
It's encouraged even. I think that's something that usually we hesitate a little because we're like, I went for one session, it doesn't seem to be fitting my vibe, or we're not being able to speak more very openly. Let me just take a step back instead of continuing forward to try others. So I think it's about being more open as well in terms of trying the different therapists, and even for coaching as well, right?
It's exactly the same. I mean, we won't feel bad if you decide to change your coach or anything. It's all about chemistry sometimes. Sometimes we even encourage our coaches to try another coach when they're hitting some kind of a glass ceiling.
Interesting. I think that brings to my next question. Can a coach be a counselor, or can a coach be a therapist, or can a therapist be a coach?
Absolutely, yes. We actually at Intellect, we have quite a few, let me call them providers. We have quite a few providers who are both coaches and counselors. So you can absolutely be trained in both, no question about it. It's actually very, very complementary. I hope one day I might also be a coach. That would be amazing. But absolutely you can be. I guess it's always about the conversation with your client on what exactly they're looking for, if they're okay with you kind of switching between both approaches, or if they really want strictly just a certain approach. That's something you have to communicate with the client. But absolutely, you can do both.
Okay, and Ivan, what's your last thoughts about this question as well?
I see our colleague there keep flashing the same question. How do you know whether to go for therapy or coaching, right?
Okay.
If in doubt, you can always start with a coach, because all the coaches here at Intellect, they have been trained or equipped to do very baseline triaging, and that means if they feel that this is a topic that is more towards therapy, they will simply refer you to a qualified therapist.
Okay.
And so this then becomes a broader entry point, I would say. Coaching becomes an entry point. Stay with the coach, or then move on to a therapy if you are not that sure.
Okay, so if you're not too sure, you can go for a coaching session and they will guide you accordingly. Okay,
Exactly.
I think we've actually perfectly summed up everything when it comes to both coaching and therapy itself. Thank you all so much for tuning in the episode of today's Kidding. Okay, yes. But thank you all so much again for actually joining us in this session when it comes to coaching and therapy. And I really hope you've actually learned a little bit of something and an insight when it comes to coaching or therapy today, and gotten some clarity as well. I see a lot of you have actually been downloading our handouts. It's great, and please continue to do so, because we do have your handouts to actually get you started on coaching itself. So remember to click on your right screen if you haven't done so yet. We are heading into a lunch break shortly, so we hope that you get to go and replenish yourselves and come back, because we do have a few more sessions that's ongoing after the lunch break itself. So the next session that we'll be having is Casting the Spotlight on Emotions, where we'll be hearing from Singaporean actress Julia Tan. So it's going to be a really amazing session. So I'm hoping that you can eat it up and come back with us and join us there, and I will see you there as well. So do remember to actually join using a unique link in the email in your inbox that you might have received, or visit the festival registration page as well. And for those from the WOG team, if you're experiencing any difficulties when it comes to logging in, please remember to use your personal devices as well. If you have any trouble joining, please do feel free to reach out to the MHF@intellect.co email address, and our members here are really kindly going to be assisting you shortly as well. So if you want to re-watch our interesting and really exciting session that we had here, do feel free to actually share this session, or you can also look at the replay button that will be available right after this on our events page and our YouTube page too. So lastly, I think you can see there's actually a poll that's been flashing on the screen itself. So take a moment to actually take out your phone to scan the QR code to leave your feedback with us. We really value how your thoughts are regarding this whole session and the whole festival itself, as we hope to create and shape better future events. So I think with that, we are all really hungry as well. We're going to grab our lunch. So thank you all so much, and have a great lunch. We'll see you in an hour. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.